Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're tackling torts.
Torts.
Yeah, torts.
Sounds a little dry.
I know, right? When I first saw torts on our list, I was like, really? Is this going to be exciting? But it turns out,
It is.
yeah, it's actually really juicy once you get into it.
Juicy.
Well, maybe not juicy exactly, but,
Oh, okay.
it's definitely more interesting than it sounds at first. And luckily, we have an expert here to help us navigate this.
Navigate torts.
Yeah, like to make sense of it all,
Yeah,
you know?
I can do that.
Awesome. So maybe we should start with the basics. What is a tort?
Well, think of it like this.
Okay.
A tort is kind of like a civil wrong.
Yeah.
It's when someone does something or sometimes doesn't do something
Uh-huh.
that harms another person.
Right.
And the law says, hold on, that's not cool.
So it's about accountability.
Exactly. It's about
Yeah.
making things right when someone messes up.
Got it. So to make this more interesting.
More interesting than torts.
Uh-huh. Yeah, well, to illustrate some of these concepts, we're going to use a story.
A story.
Yeah, kind of a case study.
Oh, I like case studies.
Me too.
Yeah.
So imagine a beekeeper named QQ.
QQ, the beekeeper.
Yeah. And QQ is, how do I put this?
A little accident prone.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. He has a knack for getting into sticky situations.
I see what you did there.
Now, let's say QQ's best friend, ZZ, is allergic to bees.
Allergic to bees, that's not good for a beekeeper's best friend.
Right. But QQ, being a bit of a scatterbrain, he gives ZZ a jar of honey.
Honey.
Yeah, a jar of honey.
That seems nice.
It does, right?
Except
Except
what?
there are 3 bees still in the jar.
Oh, no. That's not good.
Definitely not a good situation for ZZ. This is a perfect example of what we call negligence.
Negligence.
Yeah, it's one of the biggies in the world of torts.
I'm listening.
So negligence basically means you didn't act like a reasonable person would in a similar situation.
Ah, so it's not intentional.
Right. It's more about being careless.
Like QQ with the bees and the honey.
It's exactly. Now, to prove negligence,
You need to prove it.
well, yeah, if you're going to take someone to court over it,
Makes sense?
you need 4 things.
4 things, yeah.
Duty, breach, causation, and damages.
Okay, I think I'm following.
So let's break it down using our bee-infused honey example.
Or what?
Our bee-infused honey.
Right, honey with the bees.
Okay, so first duty. QQ had a duty of care to his friend ZZ,
Duty of care meaning.
meaning he had a responsibility to act in a way that wouldn't put ZZ at risk,
Yeah.
especially knowing about the allergy.
Right.
So giving ZZ that honey was a breach of that duty.
A breach.
Yeah, like a violation of that responsibility.
Ah, okay.
Then we have causation. Did QQ's actions directly cause ZZ's harm?
Well, yeah, those bees probably triggered ZZ's allergy.
Exactly. And last but not least, damages.
Damages.
Yeah, like the actual harm that was caused.
So like medical bills or pain and suffering.
Exactly. All those things would be considered damages.
So in our case, ZZ probably had to go to the doctor or something.
Probably. So you can see how all 4 elements of negligence are present in this scenario.
I'm starting to get it.
But here's where things get a little nuanced.
Nuanced.
Yeah, because the law doesn't expect everyone to be perfect.
That's good because nobody is.
Right. So it considers what a reasonable person would do in a similar situation.
So what's a reasonable person?
Well, it's kind of a legal standard,
Hmm.
like a hypothetical average person.
Okay.
So in this case, the question is, would a reasonable beekeeper meticulously check every jar for bees?
That's a good question.
And that's where the specifics matter.
Specifics.
Yeah, like is QQ a professional beekeeper or just a hobbyist?
Ah, so a professional would be held to a higher standard.
Exactly, because they're expected to have more expertise, and to take more precautions to prevent harm.
That makes sense.
Okay, let's move on from honey and bees for a minute. What if QQ's negligence isn't about bees, but about something a little more, shall we say, high
Honey?
speed?
Yeah, like
Driving.
Oh, okay. I think I see where you're going with this.
So picture this. QQ's running late for a party and decides to channel his inner race car driver,
Uh-oh.
zooming down the road, way above the speed limit.
That doesn't sound very safe.
Definitely not.
Ah.
But what if, despite his reckless driving, nobody gets hurt? No close calls, no accidents, no harm done.
So even though he was being careless, no one was actually harmed.
Exactly. So is it still negligence?
Whoa, that's a tricky one.
Right. It highlights a really important point. Even if you do something careless, it's not automatically negligence in the legal sense.
I see.
You need all 4 elements.
Duty, breach, causation, and damages.
Yep. And in this case, the crucial element of harm is missing.
So no harm, no foul.
Well, Not exactly. He was still breaking the law.
Sure.
But it shows that it's not just about being careless, it's about the consequences of that carelessness.
Consequences matter.
Okay, I think I'm starting to see how this all fits together.
Me too. It's definitely more complex than I thought.
Let's stick with QQ's driving adventures for one more scenario, just to really solidify this idea of negligence.
Okay, right?
Imagine QQ's cruising along, and a toddler suddenly darts out in front of his car.
Oh, no.
QQ, being QQ, is distracted.
Distracted by what?
I don't know, maybe a really interesting cloud formation or something?
Of course it would be QQ.
He swerves and hits the toddler's parent, JJ.
Oh, wow, that escalated quickly.
So now we have an accident with real harm.
Right, so this is definitely negligence.
Let's walk through the elements again, just to be sure.
Okay.
Duty QQ definitely has a duty of care to other drivers and pedestrians, including JJ,
Right.
and being distracted by a cloud while driving.
Not very reasonable.
Definitely a breach of that duty.
Agreed.
The causation is pretty clear. QQ's distraction directly led to the accident,
Yep.
and we have damages. JJ's injured.
All four elements.
But let's throw in a twist.
A twist.
Yeah, the toddler, after seeing their parent get hit by the car, asks QQ to call an ambulance.
That seems reasonable.
It does, right. But QQ, in shock, or maybe just being stubborn, refuses.
Refuses. Why would he do that?
Who knows? Maybe he's panicking, maybe he's just not thinking straight.
So now what?
Well, this raises the question of a duty to act.
A duty to act.
Yeah, you see, generally speaking, you don't have a legal obligation to help someone in danger.
Wait, really?
Yeah, it's kind of a strange thing, right?
Yeah.
Even if it feels morally wrong, you're not legally required to step in.
Wow, I didn't know that.
There are exceptions, of course.
Exception.
Like if you're the one who caused the danger.
So in this case, since QQ hit JJ, he has a duty to act.
Exactly. And that would include calling for help.
So his refusal could be seen as another breach of duty.
Exactly. Separate from the initial accident.
So it's not just about what you do, but also what you don't do when you have responsibilities.
Exactly. And to make things even more complicated,
More complicated.
we have to consider if QQ's refusal to call for help actually made JJ's injuries worse. Did that delay in getting medical attention contribute to additional harm? That's where the concept of proximate cause comes in.
Proximate cause.
It basically asks if the harm was a foreseeable consequence of the negligent act.
So if things got worse because QQ didn't call an ambulance, he could be liable for those additional damages.
Potentially, yes. See, negligence isn't always black and white.
Lots of shades of gray.
Exactly. But I think we've covered enough about negligence for now.
Agreed. My brain is full.
Mine too.
No.
So let's switch gears a bit and talk about intentional torts.
Intentional torts.
Yeah, situations where QQ isn't just careless but actually acts intentionally to cause harm.
Okay, I'm intrigued. This sounds a bit more deliberate.
Definitely. So imagine knowing ZZ is terrified of clowns like full-blown coulrophobia. QQ sends ZZ a birthday card.
A birthday card.
Yeah, a birthday card.
That's nice of him.
But it's not just any birthday card.
What is it then?
It features a particularly creepy dancing clown.
Oh no, not a clown.
And inside, he writes, "Grow up, ZZ."
Oh, QQ. That's just mean.
It is, right.
Yeah.
But is it an intentional tort?
Well, let's see. This would fall under the category of intentional infliction of emotional distress.
Intentional infliction of emotional distress. That's a mouthful.
It is. We call it IED for short.
IED, got it.
Basically, it's about intentionally causing someone severe emotional distress through your actions.
So it has to be really bad.
Yeah, IAED has a really high bar. It's not enough to just be mean or insensitive.
So a silly clown card probably wouldn't cut it.
Probably not, unless it caused some extreme reaction in ZZ.
Okay, so IED is about crossing a serious line.
Exactly.
What other intentional torts should we be aware of?
Well, let's bring back our toddler character for a moment.
Okay, I love that little guy.
Me too. So picture this. QQ, maybe feeling a bit guilty about the clown card incident,
Maybe.
decides to light up a cigarette right next to the toddler who starts wheezing and coughing.
That's terrible.
We-
Secondhand smoke is so bad for kids.
It is, and this is a perfect example of battery.
Battery.
Yeah, but it might not be what you think.
What do you mean?
Battery doesn't always require direct physical contact.
Wait, really?
It's about intentionally causing harmful or offensive contact.
So even though QQ didn't touch the toddler, blowing smoke in their face could still be considered battery.
Exactly. It's about unwanted and potentially harmful contact, and secondhand smoke definitely fits the bill.
Okay, that makes sense.
Now, let's say QQ, still feeling guilty about the clown card and the smoke incident,
He's on a roll.
he decides to play a game of chase with the toddler.
Oh no, I have a feeling this isn't going to end well.
In his enthusiasm, he follows the toddler onto a neighbor's property without permission.
Oops, trespassing.
You got it. Trespass to land is simply intentionally entering someone else's property without their consent.
So even if he didn't mean any harm, it's still trespassing.
Yep, it doesn't matter if the property was clearly marked or not.
So intent is key here.
Exactly. Now, while we're on the neighbor's property,
Oh, I bet something else is about to happen.
QQ trips over a potted plant and stumbles.
Oh dear, is he okay?
He's fine, just a little embarrassed.
Okay, good.
This brings up another interesting point. Trespass to chattels.
Chattels. Is that like an old-timey word for cattle? Did he stumble into a herd of cows?
Haha, no. Chattels is just a fancy legal term for personal property. Your clothes, your phone, your potted plants.
So trespass to chattels is about messing with someone's stuff.
Pretty much, it's about intentionally interfering with someone else's right to their personal property.
So did QQ commit trespass to chattels by tripping over the plant?
It depends. Did he damage the plant? Did he take it or move it?
Good point.
Simply tripping over it might not be enough.
So there have to be some intention to mess with the owner's stuff.
Exactly. Now, let's say QQ, back on his own property, decides to take aim at ZZ with a stone.
Whoa, hold on. What's going on now?
Maybe he's frustrated, maybe he's just feeling mischievous.
Okay, but throwing a stone, that's a bit much, don't you think?
Definitely. And to make matters worse, the stone misses ZZ but crashes through a window.
Whose window?
The neighbor's, of course.
Of course. So what kind of legal hot water is QQ in now?
This one's a doozy. First, we have assault, the intentional act of making someone fear immediate harm.
So even though the stone didn't hit ZZ, the act of throwing it and making ZZ fear being hit is assault.
Exactly. Then we have trespass to land again. That stone entered the neighbor's property without permission.
Right, because he threw it onto their property?
Precisely. But it's a bit trickier when it comes to trespass to chattels.
Wait, why is that? The stone broke a window, which is definitely the neighbor's property.
True, but the intent has to be specific to interfering with that property.
So because he was aiming at ZZ, not the window, it's not trespass to chattel.
It's a bit more nuanced than that, but essentially yes.
So he might be off the hook for the broken window, but he's still in trouble for assault and trespassing.
Exactly. It's a legal maze, isn't it?
It is. And we're not done yet. Remember those gifts QQ gave ZZ? The bee-infused honey and the creepy clown card.
How could I forget? Poor ZZ.
Well, picture this. The paramedics arrive to treat ZZ's allergic reaction.
Hopefully ZZ's okay.
Let's assume he is. So the paramedics are there, and QQ may be trying to be helpful or maybe just wanting to get rid of the evidence.
What does he do?
He tells the paramedics they can keep the gifts.
He can't do that. Those gifts belong to ZZ.
Exactly. And this brings us to our final intentional tort for today. Conversion.
Conversion.
It's basically about intentionally exercising control over someone else's property.
So by giving away ZZ's gifts, QQ committed conversion.
Yep. He didn't just borrow them, he gave them away permanently.
Wow, QQ has really gotten himself into a lot of trouble today.
He has, but we're not done with his story just yet.
There's more.
Oh, yeah. We still need to see what happens when the tables are turned and our beekeeper friend finds himself on the receiving end of some tortious behavior.
Oh, can't wait. Payback time.
Exactly. But we'll have to save that for the next part of our deep dive.
I'm already hooked.
Me too. It's amazing how much drama you can pack into the world of torts.
Welcome back. Ready for round 2 with QQ and the wild world of torts.
Oh, absolutely. Hit me with it. What happens when our beekeeper friend ends up on the other side of a lawsuit?
All right, so remember our pint-sized powerhouse, the toddler.
Oh, yeah, the one with the impressive throwing arm.
That's the one. Well, let's rewind to that scene where QQ was chasing them onto the neighbor's property.
Okay, I'm picturing a QQ was stumbling over something and the toddler looking all innocent.
Picture this time. Instead of just running, the toddler picks up a stone and throws it right at QQ.
Ouch. And this actually hurts QQ.
Yeah, let's say it causes a minor injury.
Wait, hold on. Is our little tyke committing battery now?
That's the thing about torts age, doesn't really matter.
You mean a toddler can be held responsible for battery?
Potentially, yes. Remember, battery is about intentionally causing harm or offensive contact, no matter who does it.
So even though they probably don't understand the legal side of things?
Right. A court wouldn't likely hold a toddler fully responsible in real life. There are things like parental supervision and a child's ability to understand consequences to consider.
Right.
But for our deep dive, it shows that the elements of a tort can apply to anyone.
Okay, so battery check. What about assault? Did the toddler also commit assault?
Ah, good question. Remember, assault is about making someone fear immediate harm.
So did QQ see that stone coming? Did he have a moment of, oh no, I'm about to get hit?
Exactly. If so, then yep, assault charges could be added to the mix.
Wow, our tiny friend is racking up quite the legal rap sheet.
Right. Okay, let's fast forward a bit. Remember when QQ was hit by the car and the ambulance was called?
Yeah.
Well, this time, as the ambulance is pulling away, the driver accidentally runs over QQ's foot.
Ouch. Talk about adding insult to injury.
Eh.
But could QQ sue for negligence? It was an accident.
That's where the professional standard of care comes in.
Professional standard of care.
Yeah, professionals like ambulance drivers, doctors, lawyers, they're held to a higher standard than the average person.
So they're expected to be extra careful.
Exactly, because they have special training and knowledge.
So even though it was an accident, the driver could still be liable.
Yep, if they didn't meet that higher standard of care.
Okay, got it. Moving on, remember when QQ threw the stone at ZZ, missed, and broke the neighbor's window?
Of course.
Well, this time, let's say ZZ throws the stone, and it shatters QQ's car window.
Oh, payback. But isn't that the same as before, just with the roles reversed?
It seems like it, right? But this time, there's a key difference.
What's that?
Context. Let's say right before ZZ threw the stone, QQ was coming at them in a threatening way, maybe yelling or something.
Ah, I see. ZZ could argue self-defense.
So even though they threw the stone and caused damage, they could be justified.
Exactly. Self-defense is a legal defense that can excuse an intentional tort.
But wouldn't the details matter, like how threatening QQ actually was?
Absolutely. The court would look at all the factors. Was QQ's behavior truly threatening? Did ZZ use a reasonable amount of force in response?
So context is key.
Oh.
All right, one last scenario for QQ's legal roller coaster.
All right, lay that at me.
Remember ZZ's spouse who told QQ, don't be so sensitive after the clown card incident? Well, this time, QQ decides to sue them for IED.
For IE, from that one comment.
Yeah, claiming those words caused severe emotional distress.
This is a good example of how IAED is not easy to prove.
So a single comment, even if hurtful, wouldn't usually be considered outrageous conduct.
Right, it has to be truly shocking and unacceptable behavior.
So unless the spouse was doing something extreme, like stalking or harassment, QQ's case wouldn't stand.
Exactly. The law doesn't cover every hurt feeling.
Okay, I'm starting to realize torts are everywhere.
They really are. From bee-infused honey to toddler tantrums, every interaction can have a legal side.
So understanding those basic principles, duty, breach, causation, and damages is really important.
Absolutely. It helps you navigate the legal world and understand the consequences of your actions.
All right, I'm ready for the big takeaway. What's the most important thing for our listeners to remember about torts?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that it's not always about winning or losing. It's about understanding how the system works.
So knowing your rights and responsibilities.
Exactly. And sometimes, even if someone's done something that seems outrageous, it might not actually meet the legal definition of a tort.
So not every wrong has a legal remedy.
Right. And tort law is constantly evolving, you know?
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, as society changes,
Yeah,
our ideas about what's considered a wrong also change.
that makes sense. So it's not just about memorizing a bunch of old laws.
Definitely not. It's a dynamic system.
I like that dynamic.
It reflects our values and how we see justice.
Well, I have to say, you've made torts way more interesting than I ever thought they could be.
Thanks.
No, really, I've learned a lot.
That's what we aim for.
So to our listener out there, hopefully, you've also learned a thing or two about torts today.
And maybe even developed a newfound appreciation for them.
Who knew torts could be so fascinating?
Right. It's all about those key elements: duty, breach, causation, and damages.
The building blocks of legal accountability.
And always remember, context matters.
Context is everything.
Now, one last thing before we wrap up. If you ever find yourself in a situation where you think you might have a legal claim,
Yeah.
don't just rely on what you heard on this podcast.
Good point.
Talk to a real lawyer, someone who can give you specific advice for your situation.
Because we're just beekeepers and podcast hosts.
Exactly. But hopefully, our deep dive has given you a better understanding of how tort law works.
With all its quirks and complexities,
And maybe even sparked your curiosity to learn more. So, until next time.
happy diving.